Let me be sure this is working. It's gonna be a lovely session this evening. All right. Great. We'll be starting in a minute. Okay, seems to be working. Everything is all right. Oh yeah. Ooh, great. All right, I think I'm ready to go on. I'm ready to go. All right, good evening, ladies and gentlemen, wherever you are. It might be morning where you are. Welcome to today's episode of Quintessential Tips. I'm your host today, Tosh. It's so lovely to be here. Thank you, my Quintessential tribe, for hanging out with me. A round of applause for you. You are awesome. You are awesome. Great to have you here. Great. How has your week been? I've had a wonderful week. I've just been enjoying myself. It's been a blast. Last week, Saturday, after I think that was just before the stream. Yes, it was before the stream. I had a wonderful photo shoot session with other members of the team Limitless International. It was awesome. It was awesome. It was awesome. Oh, it was great. We had a blast. I had people going, hey, my director, the Limitless Loretta. Wow, she treated us. She's my boss. She treated us to a wonderful photo shoot session. So thank you to you. Shout out to you. Hey, Angel Eyes. Man, it's Quintessential Tips time. That's what's going on. I'm just so happy to have you on here. All right. I better look into my camera because I do get carried away quite often. If you're joining in, can you wherever you are, can you just signify your presence? If you're watching this on the replay, that's good as well. Use a hashtag replay after your comments. If you have any comments or even questions, I'm happy to answer them on the replay. So feel free to just pass your information across to me. I'd still be checking. Wonderful. Okay, let me just see okay, it's on. I'm on YouTube as well. I'm on YouTube. I'm part of Team Limitless. We are limitless. We are fierce. So that means we're gonna take over wherever there's room. If there's no room, we're gonna create it. All right. Yeah, I'm just having the time of my life. Yeah. I've titled today's episode of Quintessential Tips as something that starts with a question. And it's simply this: are you boxed in? Are you boxed in? What do I mean by that? A couple of things. So let's just go down memory lane, shall we? All right. Do you remember years ago, probably your very young self, you were so young, you were a kid, maybe you were a teenager, you were wet behind the ears, with your breath smelling like Similac, all right? You were naive. You were naive in a good way. You believed anything and everything was possible. The innocence of a child and to a certain extent, a teenager. You believed anything and everything was possible. You approached life without trepidation, without any fear. You might call that the naivety of youth, of youthfulness or of youth. Everything was possible. You wanted to be this, you wanted to be that. There was nothing anybody could tell you. Fast forward a couple of years, let's say where you are now. You're nowhere close to what you dreamt of. What you dreamt of becoming, what you dreamt of achieving. What could have happened? Well, it's true that life throws us a lot of blows. We get a lot of hiccups. And so we start acclimatizing. We start adapting to our situation. That's just part of human nature. We have that survival instinct, all right? And so over the years, life has chipped away at those dreams, those ambitions, and then you are left living a life that you had not dreamt of. As a matter of fact, it might be someone else's dream. Where did that fierce, blue-eyed, ambitious, creative person go to? Where has it gone? That is what I term as boxed in. You've adapted to the situation. Adaptability is good for survival, but we can overcompensate for the knocks that we've had in life. Why do I say this? I woke up this morning just basking in the euphoria of this past week's activities. The photo shoot, I went to award shows. I was there clapping for people who had achieved a whole lot of things. You could even see some in disbelief. You know, they had forgotten what they set out to do, and they weren't believing, like me. I remember the day that I hit a major milestone and became Red Jacket. I had 3 people in my team within 24 hours. As a matter of fact, less than that. I woke up that morning, I went into a meeting, I was walking and I said, I'm becoming a Red Jacket today. At that time, I wasn't really sure. Words of affirmation, how powerful can they be? 3 hours to the deadline, I was still struggling a bit. Less than an hour to the deadline, I needed one more person. But it happened. I remember holding my whiteboard that morning saying, Lord, I believe. Help my unbelief. I'm telling you. But it happened. And that was because not only did I dare to believe, I also took actions based on that belief. Okay, now I'm a Red Jacket. So as I sat observing everything that was going on in these award shows, it made me to do an introspection of myself and look at how I had progressed so far. I was stuck in a rut. As a matter of fact, it's worth also saying some of the knocks I got along the way. Almost 5 years ago, I took a risk. I bet on myself, went on a limb, and achieved a couple of things. So I'm an IT professional by day and sometimes at night. I'm a solution architect. I come from an application development background. And I've always had ambitions to just move ahead, be at the top. Every now and then, I would discover that, okay, now there's a box that I didn't create. It's a box that someone else has created. If you have a boss, particularly in the corporate world, what tends to happen is that you're doing your job so well that your boss might be fearful of moving you away Because if he moves you, who's going to take over? He or she. Who's going to fill the void that you're going to create? So you tend to have bits and pieces of promotion, but they don't take you away from the original thing that you were doing. And that's because not only do you look good, not only do you make the company look good, you make your boss look good. You can't blame your boss for that. Again, that's human nature. That's adaptation. That's survival instincts. Okay? So I went out on a limb, wrote a couple, studied a lot, wrote a couple of exams. Then I got another job that expanded my horizons. About 5 years later, about 5 years later, which is 5 years ago as well. So see, I'm talking about a period of 10 years. 5 years ago, I saw that I was hemmed in. There were things that I was already doing, but when it came to formalizing that responsibility in terms of a job role, in terms of a job title, it wasn't working. I remember a boss of mine going to another boss and saying, he's been doing this. The boss said, really? I never saw him as that. However, I had actually been in meetings with that boss where I was coordinating the same thing. That's human nature. When people have a perception of you, what you can and can't do, it sticks. It takes a lot to change their minds. They don't mean it in a bad way. They don't mean it for evil. It's just the way it is. So I took that, I went out on a limb, bet on myself, did a whole lot of studies, did a whole lot of projects. The market changed. That is how I started doing some things. It was the disappointment of that made me pivot into other areas. Sometimes knocks can be a blessing, as hard as they can be, as rough as the road can be. Those knocks can be a blessing. I'm telling you. Okay? And then I moved on, wasn't happy with it. I think 2-3 months into it, I knew I had walked into a situation. 1 year later, nobody could convince me that I had not walked into a big problem, which I was trying to solve, but it wasn't dependent on myself alone. And then I pivoted into what I'm also doing now. Why did I bring up that story? It was hard. It was discouraging. As a matter of fact, I'd approach people and I'd get very funny responses. It wasn't encouraging at all. However, I had a team around me who was encouraging me. I was also encouraging people. As a matter of fact, I didn't leave my station of duty because I saw that people were were getting encouragement from me. Little did I know that as much as I was encouraging them, I would need their encouragement later. The encourager needed encouragement. And so I had a lot of people who were encouraging me, egging me to go on. And when I just believed for a period of 1 month and it was ebbing away, then 1 week, then a few days to the deadline, the encouragement from people just pushed me on, and then I achieved it. Are you in a box? Have you made a mental box for yourself? Have other people created a box for you and you have adapted your views, your actions, your perception of yourself to fit that box? If that is the case, I'm here to encourage you by saying, start taking the limit off. The limit is artificial. It hasn't been created by anybody but you. thanks to other people and your acceptance of it. Okay? I look at myself, I'm a nerd, so I'm somewhat of a nerd. I'm a melancholic primarily with phlegmatic tendencies. If you've read about the four personalities that individuals have, some of the things I'm doing now were never things that I would have done of my own accord, just naturally. I was the guy who liked sitting behind the computer, not talking to too many people. I only talked to the people that I had to talk to when I had to talk to, because it was absolutely necessary. Okay? That's the same me who's walking up to people. That's the same me who's now on social media platforms talking to people. I look at my transition now. I'm looking at the growth. It hasn't been plain sailing. I've just told you stories without going deep into them. What I'm most proud of is not even the achievements, it's not the successes. It's the evolution that I'm seeing. Just this past week, I spoke with a family friend of mine, and then she just reminded me. I mean, she talked about some of the things that I do now, like Mary Kay and stuff. Guess what? She's a medical professional, and she was talking about her hands being hard due to the gels, the alcohol-based gels that they've been using, that all of us have been using, particularly doctors and nurses, to kill the germs in the CV due to the COVID, the restrictions, how to keep yourself safe. And then I smiled. I said, I have something for you. And then I gave her a bunch of recommendations. Come to think of it, my hand is feeling very dry, so I'm just gonna use a bit of this. If you want to know what I'm using, it's just the Mary Kay Satin Hands. It's my go-to. I recommended the Mary Kay Satin Hands to her, and then the no rinse gel, which the fragrance-free no rinse hand sanitizer. That's what I talked about during the last podcast. That's what I talked about. A few days later, someone's asking me about it, and I just told them what I use. So I was talking from personal experience. Not only that, it was the question afterwards that I was most proud of. The question went thus: do you enjoy what you're doing? Without skipping a beat, I said, yes. That's not the same guy 2 years, 3 years ago. I was struggling. I wanted to do it in one way. The framework wouldn't allow me to do it that way, so I had to do it another way. But look at me today. All right? So if that's going to encourage just one person, I'm fulfilled. I'm more than happy to have done this podcast session today. Okay? So are you boxed in? Don't feel that you are at the end of the road. You can turn the situation around. I'll be talking about steps to do that. What I'll leave you with is to start believing. Go back to your dreams and aspirations. Start looking at them today. You still can. Now you have that child innocence with the maturity that experience brings as an adult. Now you're not going to be left with dreaming alone. You're going to start working your way through the challenges, the problems that you would have to solve. Where there's a problem, there's always a solution. You might not get the solution now, but somehow, somewhere, at some time, the solution will come to you. You are going places. You don't need to be boxed in. I want you to be your absolute best. And so, keep believing, keep striving, and then your impossibilities today will be your achievements and success stories tomorrow. I hope that helps someone. Thank you so much for joining me. I've had a wonderful time. It's Maytunde Tosh. I'm so happy that you decided to spend your time with me wherever you are. I'm so appreciative of you. Thank you so much. Till next week.